So, damn. And I had never heard Keisha use language like, I was like, oh shit. This is before the braids now. She got the braids. Now you know she'll thug it out. I said, oh man. I said, it's real. And I got up there and I gave an impassioned speech about in times of turmoil, you do not burn down your own community to spite an enemy. You provide a space of solitude and place of organization so that you may plot, plan, strategize, organize, and mobilize to do better, to organize better, to fight against the bureaucracy and the evil of government and tyranny. You do that. Now, some folks took out of that Mike siding with government, but you ain't never grew up in an all-black community. It's founded by black people. You ain't grow up where it was expected for you to go to the black colleges that are on the west side. You didn't grow up where Miss Barbara owned the gas station at the Exxon, so your grandmama wouldn't go to no QT. You didn't grow up at Frederick Douglass High School where it said with struggle there'll be no progress. You didn't grow up in a neighborhood that had created mayors. You didn't grow up in a place where black kids were expected to be. So if that neighborhood burns, we lose. You don't know what you talking about, sucker. You just talking. And there's going to be a time where we're going to be required to be active and be about action. But that only happens when the young people in this room see themselves as leaders now and not future victims. You are nobody's victim. You are a warrior. Tuskegee. You got to show up. You got to speak. You got to talk. You got to encourage. You got to help. Right now, there's a little boy in 5th, 6th grade who's not confident because he's not a strong reader. Young men and women in this room, young men especially, it is up to you to teach that little boy better. And you ain't got to look far. You got some cousins like that. You're no good to Tuskegee if you don't replace it with a student to sit in your seat when you're gone. You have failed. You graduating is not enough. You have to prepare the next wave of students. You got to put your arm around them. The ultimate reinvestment is not money. It is your time and your presence. And that's not for the old people. That is for the young. You are leaders now. You ain't a future leader, a finna be, a wanna be, a gonna be. You are leaders now. I need you to connect with your city council, with your government. If you are not home and you're here 9 months out of the year, you got to go to some city council meetings right here. You got to get determined to vote right here. You got to help get out the vote right here. You have to demand fairness and justice and equality and jobs and resources right here. Tuskegee is not just meant to be inside this gate. Tuskegee University has to lead outside of this gate. It has to influence the world globally, but that only happens when the young people in this room know I am right now. I'm him. I'm her right now. I'm not the future, nothing. I am the right now. Ain't no future. It's right now. Ain't no tomorrow. It's today. You all are the absolute greatest resource we have. There is nothing the black community produces better than black children. You are gold. Speaking up alone won't change. We need real infrastructure. When you go and you complain, I need you to go back to your dorm room and say, well, how can we fix it? When you look at things that we all use today, whether it's YouTube, whether it is DoorDash, many of these things were started by a bunch of broke college students sitting in a room trying to figure out, how do I get a pizza at 1 a.m? Because the Pizza Hut won't deliver to my neighborhood. How do I create an opportunity for people who don't have the $250,000 it takes to buy a coin in New York so I can drive a cab? So you create Uber. How do I create an opportunity now that I moved out of my mama's house? My mama just got 4 empty rooms. Well, what can my mama do? How do you create the next Airbnb? How do you, on your trip to Europe, go peep out how convenience stores are different there and bring it back and do it differently here? You guys are the leaders now. We need your ideas now. I was so inspired. I watched a little white boy pushing a lawnmower on the internet yesterday. They say, man, when I first got it, they told me, man, you're a fool for getting a lawnmower. You're just doing lawn care. That ain't gonna help. So he went and bought another few lawnmowers and bought a raggedy truck. That raggedy truck got in an accident. He took the money and bought a bigger truck. By the time I got to the end of this young man's story, this young man had a fleet of trucks and over 40 employees from cutting grass. And now blacktails think we done got too good for cutting grass. Maybe it's about organizing 10 of your friends to cut grass. Maybe it's about understanding that Tuskegee University's pride is not just in creating engineers, but you built the place. You can create plumbers, you can create carpenters. Herman J. Russell got rich because he knew how to hang sheetrock. He got wealthy because he learned to understand construction. His wealth and what he taught created other developers. So he became more than a sheetrock hanger, but he knew how to hang sheetrock. Sometimes we're going to feel low. Sometimes it's going to feel hopeless. Sometimes you're going to feel like you're the lowest on the totem pole. It's in those times you got to sit on the edge of that bed in that dorm room and contemplate. I just started a new podcast called Conversate. I know that's not a word for all my professors. But black people be conversating. And we have the ability in our conversating to create real change. What's good of success if it just dies with you, young people? What good is Herman Russell's success if he just died and he had been successful? He becomes some black history folklore we talk about. He's more than that. He's the father to at least 3 other developers I know. He has a family. His grandson just bought a home. And I got invited to their family dinner, and I was honored. And I honestly thought I was going to have to drive to the suburbs. And I hate anybody know me. No, I don't even go to Lenox in Atlanta. My wife shop up there. I ain't going to Lenox. His grandson bought a house in the West End, not even 6 miles from where his grandfather's house was. And it showed me that this family is intact. They get it. They understand. So as I sat there and I ate with them and I congregated with them, I understood that this family understands the importance of community because they still living. Now, some of them got a little richer, they moved to Midtown. They're the older folks, though. They tired of those young folks. But even in where they live, they can look out their window and see the one skyscraper that was built by black people in the Atlanta skyline. And I understood why they bought it. We have an opportunity. And that opportunity and that success we have is what we have to ask ourselves in that time. What good is my success if it dies with me? I am in my lifetime, and I'm 50 years old now. My goal is not just to simply make money, because to be very honest with you, white folks pay me pretty good to sing and dance. I could just be happy singing and dancing. But my wife reminds me that you have something to do on the weekends, and that's being an asset to your community. She actually told me one day, she said, Negro, your job is to sing and dance for white folks. And on the weekends, do your best to help your people and leave a legacy. So I'm doing my best to make sure that when I die, and one day, hopefully a long way away, when I leave, there's going to be a legacy in which I've helped people directly become owners and to become leaders. There's going to be a legacy in which I have inspired someone to say, I saw you and I'm inspired by you and I did this. I'm determined to make sure that as I walk these highways and byways in the deep South, that someone says, I heard you speak that day, and because of that, I believed in myself more. Because ultimately, that's all it's about. I'm here because of Booker T. Washington High School, not just Frederick Douglass High School, because Booker T. Washington High School produced Martin Luther King. Booker T. Washington High School produced Lena Horne. Booker T. Washington High School sits in the heart of the west side of Atlanta, and most of my teachers went to Booker T. Washington High School. And they would tell us, we don't care how proud you are you went to Frederick Douglass. You still ain't Booker T. Oh, man. You talk about a prideful group of folks. Me and T, I opened Bankhead Seafood. Man, I walked in, all these ladies was in blue and white and these big church hats. I was like, man, what is going on? This is Booker T. Washington High School Alumni Association, son. We just came down to see if the fish still tastes the same. And it does, baby. Now stand up and take a picture with us. There's a pride in having a legacy. And I want you guys to feel that pride. So I want you guys to start right now. Find a high school student to encourage. Find a young cousin to call back home and say, hey, cuzzo, how you doing? How you doing in school? I expect you to come to Tuskegee, cuzzo, or go to a HBCU, cuzzo. I need you to do that. You need some help? I might not be good at math, but I got a friend that is. We're going to FaceTime you later, cuzzo. I need you guys to know that you are leaders now. Housing, education, financial literacy, safe public spaces, all of these are what we need. So pick something. My pediatrician was the first Black pediatrician in the state of Georgia. His name was Dr. Otis Smith. Dr. Otis Smith arrived at Morehouse out of picking cotton and working fields in South Georgia with a potato sack. Otis Wilson was the first Black man that I had seen in my presence, in my face, not on TV, say, son, I'm a millionaire. And his wife rushed out the kitchen. Otis, you don't say that. He said, why not? I want him to know it's possible. And I'm not a millionaire because I'm a doctor. I'm a millionaire because I've invested. He invested in restaurants. He invested in real estate. He was part of the reason my neighborhood was as densely populated with Black success as it was. And he had taken care of us as children from the time we were children with our health to our ego and making sure that we had big enough egos to know that we could be Otis Smith too, whether you went to college or not. He didn't care if you wanted to be a plumber. He wanted you to be a millionaire plumber. My air conditioning man, my HVAC man, his neighbor was T.I. He don't sing or dance. He's a Black man that moved to Central America, started an HVAC company after learning HVAC, now has over 40, 50 employees. So we need you to pick something and to master it. We need you to master housing. We need you to master education. We need you to master public safety, literacy. We need you to do that. Everything I've ever won award-wise, they gave to somebody else next year. I've won an Emmy. I've won a Grammy. I've won BET Awards. I've won a lot of things, but all those things have faded. The next year, somebody else wins. What will never fade, what will never ever fade is the legacy of inspiration that I have left when someone comes to me and says, I started a business because of you. I went into plumbing or HVAC and I'm able to sustain my family because of the advice and encouragement you gave. The legacy persists in the government, who I have a relationship with, who a lot of Black folks weren't happy about. Hell, I wanted the Black lady to win too. So hard I worked on a campaign twice. But if you don't take my advice, I shut up. I can't. But the guy who did win, I reached my hand out to him and said, hey, you're the governor, I'm a constituent. I have some things that I'd like for you to know and think about. So when that governor restored the Hope Scholarship that gives students who have a B average an opportunity to go, he attached trade school to it too. Our girls are going to college and succeeding. Many of our boys are not choosing to go to college, but they'll go to trade school. So because of my relationship with that governor, we don't have the same political affiliation. We don't believe in Christ in the same way. We both got guns and we're overprotective of our daughters. I'll give them that. But he attached trade schools to that piece of legislation. What happens if you don't have an aggravating big mouth guy like Mike in the room saying that? What happens if the rapper who's been formally educated to be prepared for these moments doesn't get in that room of 40 executives in Georgia and say, hey, this is what we need on the elementary level. We need to put trades back in high school. We need to make sure our elementary school kids are exposed to these things. What happens if Tuskegee doesn't prepare Betty, who doesn't marry Willie, who doesn't raise Michael? I would argue nothing happens. So understand that your greater legacy is going to be in the influence you have, not just the coins you make. My legacy is bigger than a Grammy, it's bigger than awards, it's bigger than selling records, it's bigger than making millions of dollars because I sing and dance for a living. My legacy is in the businesses that I managed to grow and make successful, for the opportunities they give people to have a stable life, to have stable income, to give them the dignity and nobility that they deserve, to raise strong children. As Frederick Douglass said, it is easier to grow strong children than it is to repair broken men. Take in what I'm saying. This is for the adults. It is easier to grow strong children than it is to repair broken men. We got to stop breaking each other. We got to get out these dumb, stupid debates over who's the best. Do we go 50-50? Who's helping who and who ain't? We got to see ourselves as a team, as a collective. The pride of seeing that deed and seeing my great-grandmother's name and my great-grandfather's name showed me that partnership is the way to carry forth in a marriage. A partnership. If you ask my grandmother something, I don't care if she already had the answer. She's going to tell you, well, I got to talk to Willie about that. Not for permission, for partnership. If you ask my grandfather, what did granddad, I want to go, well, I got to go talk to your mom. Man, come on, what you got to talk? Hey, I'm going to talk to my old lady. I got to sleep with her tonight. You in there on the pallet. I remember my grandfather died. I tried to console my grandmother. I said, well, he died fishing. He died doing what he loved. She said, he liked coming home, sitting right here on this bed next to me. I said, boy, you can't break them up even in death. There have been some foundations. There have been some opportunities to organize that I chose as a child because my grandmother told me that that's what you're supposed to do, that I took advantage of. I didn't join organizations that simply took advantage of me. I love basketball, baseball, football. I love the brothers get out there and get involved. But some of our brothers just reliving their childhood through their kids. You weren't even that good of a football player, Malik. You're trying to make your child Shadua Sanders. You sucked at football. That's why this team do. You can't coach good, son. But you're giving them the time and resources they deserve. And because of that, I want to challenge everyone in the room to find an institution that you can support. For me, it was the Atlanta Foods Commission on Children, Youth, and Kids for a Change. That was a white woman from Chicago. She organized with Reverend James Orange, who was from Selma. James was a lieutenant with Dr. King and helped. John Lewis, who was a member of SNCC, then came over to the FCOC, right? There's a woman named Alice Johnson. And Alice, I remember going to a board of adults, these rich white folks, like one of their white folks, and her name was Lucy. Her grandfather started Equifax. That's a big deal. That's who take care of your credit. And she said, these children have to be on the board with you, or this board cannot continue. Now, this woman grew up white, working class in Chicago, and she didn't really understand that Southerners don't always take children as seriously as you need some kids. What you mean, kids on a board with us? And she said one of the most powerful things I've ever heard. She told that room full of people, you do not organize for people, you organize with people. And no one better knows the problems of teenagers in this city than teenagers in this city. We were allowed on the board, and because of that, Andy Young tells a story of a young 15-year-old Michael coming into his office and demanding that they underwrite a series of forums that we held to survey kids to see what the Atlanta kids needed, whether it was school systems, social programs. We did 4 forums that worked. People could come, adults, but they had to listen only. Out of that, Mayor Shirley Franklin, who would later become mayor, was the city manager. She was there listening. One of the big reasons I supported her, I knew she was 100% real. Another thing we did out of those forums, kids cared in an they cared in a global way, because at that time, Eastern Horn of Africa, Ethiopia in particular, was facing a famine. We as kids helped raise $100,000 to go toward ending famine. People thought kids were going to care about a litany of things, but kids cared about education. Instead of tests, they wanted truly an education. Kids cared about helping other kids in another country. Like kids today are protesting on the behalf of people in Gaza, and I encourage to keep that support. Kids were protesting at that time against the apartheid in South Africa. Kids had a greater worldview than they ever thought. And Andy tells that story with a sense of pride, because I think he only gave us $500. But he connected us with companies like Chick-fil-A that fed the kids. I always honor Kathy Truitt and his family, no matter who they vote for, I don't care. What I know is they took a bunch of kids and gave those kids an opportunity not only organize, but be fed so they could simply pay attention in the forums. And we did this as children. And we did this because we were allowed the power to be on a board. So I want to encourage the adults in this room to allow children the power of you listening to them and acting upon the things that they suggest. I want to encourage the kids to use your power to think more radically and different about solutions than the ones you just given. A lot of times, they tell you, Fred Hampton was 21 years old, and this is what he did. He died. The government killed him. But as your 21-year-old self sits here, I guarantee that not only can you repeat Fred Hampton's rhetoric and dialogue and the points he knew, you can create an even different thing that may be more effective in the now. And Fred is an absolute hero of mine. But Dick Gregory told me and T.I., we was on the phone with Dick Gregory one time, and T.I. said, well, what can we do, Mr. Gregory? Could we protest? And he cussed us out. Nigga, what you gonna protest for? We've been protesting 60 years. Now they give you a time limit on when to protest. You get a permit, and at 7 o'clock, they put your black butt out. And he cussed. Tip hung up. Tip called me back, telling my man, my phone died. I said, nigga, you lying. But I learned that day that as we grow in this struggle, you have to constantly be evolving. Like Kwame Ture said, better known as Stokely Carmichael, you have to be in a constant state of organizing. And old people, man, we can't be as constant as we can, as we used to. Like your stomach, get feeling different, you get old, your knees hurt. So we need to follow y'all. There's a new way of organizing yet to be born, and it's in this room, in one of you guys' head, and you're scared to say your idea. But I guarantee if you start doing it, we'll follow, because y'all are leaders. When I think of institution, I always return to the barbershop. The swag shop has been a place to make money, but I ain't made more money from the swag shop as I made rapping. I make much more money rapping. But I've given men and women a chance to have a dignified job. They ain't got to sell no weed on the side. They ain't got to look for no second or third job. They can proudly say, I'm a barber. I'm a person who's mastered a trade, who uses that trade to feed and have a functional family. And beyond that, we are influencing a community. We have mental health programs that get a chance to come in and talk to Black men about mental health. We got medical health programs that get a chance to come in and talk to our consumer base about that. We get an opportunity to engage in business with big corporations like Square. But I had a pivotal moment at COVID. At COVID, man, I'm telling my wife, hey, man, I think we may have to close the shop because it's not paying for itself. And she had told me, as long as the shop pays for itself, you can keep it. Because, you know, my wife does real business. You know, she's a real estate developer. You know, she pretty big time, right? I got a barbershop. Place for me and my homies to hang out and drive our old cars and brag. Meanwhile, she's building apartments and stuff. She said, well, what are you going to do? And I checked my DM, and there was a mother in that DM, and she said, my boys' fathers are gone. And by coming to the swag shop on a weekly basis and getting a little Hot Wheels, because part of the way we drummed up business is we just gave $1 Hot Wheels away. When you got a haircut, you got a Hot Wheel. So we grew our audience up because kids like getting Hot Wheels. So they start asking me, Mom, I want to get a haircut. She said, your place is a place that shows them that men can be dignified and decent and don't have to sell dope to do it. You driving your old school car, parking up there, you giving them Hot Wheels encourages them. And they get to see an opportunity in that. And I need you to keep the barbershop open because I need to bring my boys back to see that because they don't have it readily around them. And I remember sitting on my sofa, not knowing how long COVID was gonna last, knowing how much my rent was every month. Like, man, I don't want to give up all my Magic City money. Some of y'all gonna get that joke later. So I told my wife, I said, I think I got it. I said, we're gonna sell t-shirts. She said, you think you can? I said, I'm gonna do it. So we started pressing t-shirts. And the t-shirt sales, because our customers, what I realized, were not just coming for haircuts. They had bought into a culture. They had bought into a culture of masculinity that was non-toxic. There weren't no suckers now. Now, they still talk hard. Them boys still drove muscle cars, some of us, you know. But it was encouraging of young men. It let young men know that you didn't just have to be an athlete to be cheered for. Our barbers would brag on which colleges their young men they service would go to. The mothers would come in there and not feel disrespected, feel safe. The mothers would tell the barbers, well, he has some problems. I want you to talk to him about that and never get done. I understand that we had become a cultural landmark in South Side of Atlanta, Edgewood Avenue. We had become a cultural phenomenon, and even in the barbers that left and went other places, because when they went other places, our barbers were different than the folks they worked around. There was a dignity. And that's when I realized that I'm not even a barbershop. We're a culture, we're a brand masquerading as a barbershop. You come to get your hair cut, but you end up getting your head and your heart filled. You come getting more encouraged to be better, to do better. Not better than anyone, just better than yourself yesterday. And that's when I realized I have a social responsibility to do more than make a coin. The shade wash and groom shop have shown me that when you do business as a service or a product for people and for a community, you get to have a better business because it's not just greed and ego and money based. It is an investment in the community that the community returns. And that mother still comes up, even though her boys have graduated and went on, and she still encourages us. And she still sends other people to us because I understood no matter how long, I'm accountable to this woman. And I'm accountable to the other men and women.